Yes. Again, welcome. We're going to be talking, like you all know, about how to thrive with self-care, Heartset, and self-care today, because as you all have been experiencing this really challenging time, and more than ever before, this idea of taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of others is really on the table. So we wanted to take this time to bring more of that information to you. A lot of what we're going to be sharing today, you may have heard before, but I know for myself, a lot of times we need that reminder. And I know that a lot of you have been very resilient already in these last 2 years. I'm sure there's parts of yourselves that you didn't even know that you had. And I think we all know that when we have a challenge, we rise to that occasion, and we've all been tested. So just, maybe taking a moment to appreciate yourself right now in this moment of how resilient you've already been and continue to be. So that's just really important for us to make sure we're aware of that. So I'm going to jump into the PowerPoint. Start sharing what today is about. And again, thank you for our partners making this workshop possible so that we could bring you this information. And our intention today is that it inspire you, that it's informative, but it's also going to be practical, things that you can actually take away from today that will support you on a day-to-day basis. And what today is about, as I said, is information, but also something very practical, tools that you can use to be more resilient. We'll touch a little bit on what Heartset education is, and also an opportunity to connect with fellow educators who are making a difference. And sometimes our breakout sessions, which is an opportunity for you to go in smaller rooms with each other, are the favorite part of the day. So we'll also be giving you an opportunity to connect with each other in small breakout rooms. Also, if you don't have it already, make sure you grab a pad or something to write with, because we'll do some journal reflection as well. And we also will hope that you will continue to put chats in the your comments in the chats, because we're not the only ones. Oh, Stu is here, that are supporting each other, but you are learning from one another, and we want to give you that opportunity to do that as well. So I'm going to come out of the things just so we could take a look and see where Stu is. Welcome, Stu. He's in the waiting room. Let me come back out. Can you go ahead and let him in?
Yeah, go ahead and continue, Marguerite.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just trying to get that going. Cool. So Armando, I'm going to hand it to you to talk a little bit about what they can get them, how to get the most out of today with our guidelines for the session. So our guidelines, I'll go ahead and jump in, is to always just be present. Sometimes when you were doing Zooming, we've got multiple tabs open, we've got our phones, et cetera, et cetera. So we just want to encourage you to be as present as you can possibly be to get the most out of it. Continue to participate. It's going to be a lot more interesting, as you know, when we actually are participating in the activities. Keep your sound on mute. Use the chat, and we are going to be going into breakouts, so we always just want to mention the idea of creating a safe space of confidentiality to support one another in feeling safe to share our truths. So those are our ways to say, here's how to make this a great session. And often when we start our sessions, we like to take a moment to just reflect on who's here. Take a look at the screen and see who is here. Part of, this virtual world is we don't always get to be with each other in person, but creating maybe that energy of connection, of togetherness, even while we are online. So just take a moment now to scroll through the screens, There's three on my screen. There's three, and I'm just seeing your beautiful faces. I'm seeing some eyes. And just take a moment to see one another, because part of staying resilient and supporting one another is to value one another, to be seen, to see and to be seen. So I just wanted to know that there's that opportunity to build that community right here and now, even on a virtual training. So I'm going to go back into the slides and talk a little bit about what is resilience, the definition of it. And I think we've been all hearing that word a lot, but there are some definitions that I think speak to what it is. The first one is the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events. The mental reservoir of strength that helps people handle stress and hardship. And again, I think that all of us have been so resilient this past couple years in ways maybe that we didn't realize that we could be. And it's really about overcoming the challenges that are presented to us. And it really gives us an opportunity to overcome hardship. And it actually makes us stronger. Go ahead, put a yes in the chat if you know that when you are challenged, that's when you're learning and growing the most. I know for me, that's often, a time when I wish it would go away. But then when I look back in hindsight, I'm like, wow, I grew a lot during that tough time. Or when I had to step up and show up is when I really grew. And I bet that you've seen that in your students as well. When they feel challenged, they are, they're building their resilience. They're building their strengths. Yes. I see a lot of yeses. So you can really, really relate to that. And I think Oprah's words say it all, turning our wounds into our wisdom, taking, the things that are difficult and making them what will make us stronger, what makes us even better than we were before. So go ahead, put in the chat, what are 2 or 3 words or any words that describe your experience these past 2 years? What has been your experience? I know for me, it's definitely been a time of recognizing that I am more resilient and resourceful than I thought I could be. It's also been a time of realizing that, who I surround myself really matters, and making sure that I have people around me that are supportive. So what are some words that would describe what your experience has been? Because I think also sometimes reflecting what we've gone through gives us an opportunity to learn even more. AJ says transformational and vulnerable. It's vulnerable to be in this challenging place. Sharona, weird, adaptive, and growth. In our ACE program, often we do an activity where we make the kids feel a little uncomfortable, and they always say, that's weird, right? So it feels weird when we're uncomfortable. Paula says growth. Sarahi says growth, happiness, and discovery. Jenny, centering myself in my values and strengths. Yeah, I think recognizing that we all have a place inside ourselves that is strong, and we sometimes don't see it until we're actually pushed or challenged. Challenge and growth, says Tomas. Growth, a time of self-love, says Gisele. Jonathan, change. Meticulous struggle. Oh, that's an interesting way of saying it, Ruben. Meticulous struggle. It's like noticing all the little things. A lot of growth. Danielle sharing quote, there is no growth in the comfort zone and no comfort and growth and the growth. COVID has provided me with lots of opportunities to learn and grow. Yes, so true. And I'm just going to check in, and because I can't see, I've got the screen on. Is Stu with us? Armando?
Stu is finally with us.
Yay! Welcome, Stu. I'm just reading what are some of the comments from what are the words that describe these past 2 years. Jasmine says, I'm en route. This is Dr. Maya Angelou. yeah, progress over perfection, right? It's not perfect, but we are learning and growing. Beautiful. So thank you all for sharing. There's so many great ways that you are describing what we're going through. And I'm sure that you can relate to other people's words that they're sharing as well. So just a little bit about Growth Heartset and Educare. We have been leaders in social emotional learning for the past 32 years or more, and providing many, many programs from after school to our social emotional flagship of the ACE program, leadership, professional development. But this idea of Heartset is really about developing cultures of caring. There's that famous quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And by creating the environment of caring, it creates an environment where students want to learn and grow. And that's really what Educare is all about. So I see Stu's smiling face, and it's so great to see you, Stu. Welcome.
Well, good morning. It's good to be here with you. Resilience. I had my taste of it in the last 15, 20 minutes. I'm not sure if I'm on screen, but I'll keep talking. Am I on screen? There I am.
Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah, and I'll just come out for a moment so you can see everybody.
great. Well, good. And it was up until 5 minutes before we were about to start, and all of a sudden, internet went down. So found a way here. But good morning, and I'm just glad that I can be with you in this sort of way. I just want to say a few words about resilience. And one of the things that I think we've all realized, we've been on a journey of challenges over these last few years, and at times doesn't seem to end. And one of the things I think that's carried us through has been finding places within ourselves that we could just pull upon, and then looking out for support from others that could be there when we needed them most. So, and as we know, with the world around us today, it's ever needed. World situations, our personal lives, it keeps on moving in those directions, that we have to find those sources of a center, of a solid foundation. And how do we do that? So I'm glad to join in here with you on this. I have my notes here, which were going to be on screen, but I'm going to look down at a time for it. So if I understand us right on the agenda, we're talking about what builds resilience. And
yeah. Should I go back into the PowerPoint? You ready for that?
No, I think we're fine. I think we're fine. I kind of see where we are right now. And I think one of the things I wanted to bring up at this point was it's already been there in terms of our resilience. I'm in the belief that the skills of our resilience, and in terms of Educare, we call educare, bring forth what's already within. That's the Latin root of Educare. And resilience has already been within us. And now we're really asked to bring it out. So I think today I'm looking at how do we look at what we've done over these last 2 years and build upon that, take note of it, learn from each other, and know that we're in a community today to do that. So one of the ways I thought we might best start is to look at what did we each draw upon in ourselves over these last few years, and what's helped you through very personally. So I'll kind of share a little bit, but I thought while I do that, you might put in the chat, if you would, what did you draw upon within yourself to keep going, regardless of what was showing up in your home, in your health, with your family, with your friends, with your work, with your kids? What did you draw upon? And you can just write some of those words in the chat. And for me, one of the things I knew I drew upon was my faith, my optimism. I pulled out the reaching out to people who love me and support me, and also knowing that I could be there for others. So those are some things that I drew upon to really pull through when things are really tough. And all of our journeys have been unique. Everyone's had their own, but we've kind of somehow navigated it together. So I imagine in the chat there's some words of what did you draw upon within yourself, and Margarita, Armando, anything we're seeing in there, what people are commenting on?
Not yet, but I just put in there that reaching out to friends and family for me, going on walks and being creative has really helped me.
Great. So anybody else, just toss it in the chat there, if you would.
They are coming in. Jenny says, I drew upon my emotions and knowing that there are actually data and can bring, strength. They inform me and guide me. It's beautiful. I'm not sure how to pronounce Jazov. My ancestors, dreaming in nature.
Neat.
Friends and family and music, says Adrian. Jacqueline, I became more determined and driven. Amelia, connection to nature and family. Karen, self-value, learning to ask for help.
Yeah. I see Adriana taking care of my mental health. Gazelle started going to therapy. So that reaching out for support, knowing we're part of the community, I think we're all seeing, I have a sense there's a communal resilience. As tough as it is, we're building a strength amongst us all and individually. So we're going to give you a chance to talk to one another in a breakout where you'll be with two others, a group of about 3, introduce yourself. And the questions will be pretty much personal to you. So I invite you just to be sharing as openly as you would. The question will be, share an example of your resiliency this past 2 years. And what has helped me that I drew upon? So an example, and what did you draw upon? So for me, if I'm in your chat with you in your breakout, I would say an example of my resiliency was during the fall. It was a really tough time for me and my family. We lost our dog. My sister-in-law passed to COVID quite quickly, a good friend. And so everything seemed to be falling apart. And I said, where can I find a sense of how do I get through this? And so what I drew upon was many things. So one was my brother is blind. He lost his wife. And I said, I'm going to be with him. So being of service to him as we were all grieving was pulling me through. Having people that I asked for to support us long distance. I was in the East Coast with him. And what helped me a lot was knowing I wasn't alone. And I drew upon the support of my faith, of my friends, of my family. So as much as you care to be personal and intimate, share your name, where you're from, and what's been an experience where you needed to pull on your resilience in these last couple of years, and what did you use to pull upon? So we'll let you know. It'll be about 6-7 minutes in your breakout room. Introduce yourself by your name, organization, and then whoever wants to go first, we'll let you know about halfway through, and then with a minute left, about 6 or 7 minutes, and enjoy each other. And take note that you already have the gift of resilience and see where it showed up in these last few years. So I'll leave it over to Armando if you place us into breakout rooms, please.
Good. You guys are on a breakout room. Some of you will have 4. And then of course, like what Sue said, we'll message you halfway through, just make sure that everybody's gone and message you a minute out. So enjoy each other's company, and we'll get you guys back in.
Roll back, Stu.
Welcome back, everybody. And hopefully that was valuable time. And I can't see everyone, unfortunately, but just maybe by a thumbs up or show of hands, how many found that time valuable talking to one another? Glad to see. And would love to hear from a few people. What did you pull upon? Rather than share your whole story, but maybe a few of you can just open mic, or we'll call on you, raise your hand, or just open your mic. And what did you describe to your partners that you pulled upon to help build yourself and get you through? So whoever would like to start, please just open your mic.
Ruby's got her hand up.
Thank you, Ruby. Go right ahead.
Hi. So I think with all of us, I think like self-care, mental health, putting ourselves first was like a big one. But also I saw that our why and our what kept us going was like kids and families at the root of it all, and just seeing the positive outcomes that we made for everyone, and how like us going in with a positive attitude, us going in with almost like trying to give our 100%, really like we could see that in the kids and how they were and stuff like that. And that gave us like, that made us feel good and like made us want to keep going and stuff.
Wow. I applaud you, Ruby. You know, that sense of purpose that you described, Ruby, I think for a lot of us, a lot of people, because here we are, those of us on here today, we love to help others. And that sense of purpose while we take care of ourselves is a great motivator. So thanks, Ruby. Who else would like to share? What did you draw upon?
You can raise your hand or your virtual hand. I see a hand. Oh, Daniel.
Hi, good morning. In my group, a couple of us, we talked about how COVID has tried to divide us within a certain stance and opinion about this or that. But we talked about how we stayed true to ourselves and our own core values, and that we always bounce back to what our beliefs are and what we chose to support, whether this or that. But that was the biggest thing, that we just wanted to make sure that we stay true to our core values, no matter that some of our workspaces still required us to do X, Y, and Z. But again, keeping true to who you are and bouncing back to your baseline of your values.
Wonderful. Daniel, thank you. That reminder that those values, that sense of inner connection to what's true to us, those are the power sources for us. So thanks so much, Daniel. And we'll take time for maybe one or two others. What did you pull upon to help? Because the resilience has been there. Let's take note of it. Let's acknowledge it. Who else?
And you can raise your hand or your virtual hand. Anybody?
Anyone else?
Laura.
Okay. Thanks, Laura.
Hi, everyone. In our group, we were talking about, loss, and it was loss in terms of losing loved ones, in terms of, our children not getting the developmental needs that their needs being met, like hanging out with their peers as a toddler when that time's really important. And I think with this, and along with the resiliency, it's really important to remember to just give grace. Give grace to others around you, give grace to yourselves, because, as advocates for children, we're constantly giving it to our students, but we also need to give it to ourselves and to our peers as well. And just be mindful that there are things happening behind closed doors that we have no idea about, and just to be gentle with one another.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Laura. That whole thought of gentleness and
Your sound is going out, Stu.
And with others. So thanks.
There's
And I
also
just
a
want to
few
take us
sharings in the chat
into.
too, Stu.
Okay. Okay, so go right ahead, Marlene, and then take us into that next PowerPoint slide.
Oh, okay. So Patrick said, nature being of service, faith, family, drawing on our inner strength. Danielle, I realized even though our stories were different, we found service to others helped to build our resilience. So the theme of serving others is definitely what a lot of everyone's sharing. Edith also said serving others as well.
Great. Well, thanks, everybody. And we have a PowerPoint slide that kind of summarizes some of this, that what do we pull upon to fortify ourselves? And if you want to take us into that, Marguerite.
Yeah. So all these things that a lot of you have already shared already, asking for help, being patient with ourselves and others, remembering to be grateful for even the smallest of things in our life, that's a blessing. Humor and laughter, right? Laughing at ourselves, laughing at the situation, bringing that into situations that are difficult, brings a lightness to the heaviness that we often feel. Helping another, letting go of each day's upsets, concerns, and worries, like remembering to just know that we just did the best we could today, and to let it go and move on. And then breathing out, exhaling, letting go, breathing in and breathing out, just taking in the energy of the love that's around us through our breath. And then Armando is going to talk just a little bit about our Heartset skills.
Thanks, Marguerite. A lot of our work, I know some of you guys have seen it. Some of you guys have gone through our certification, a year-long certification, and we do definitely cover each skill set, which is they connect with each other. So skill number one, seeing the best in everyone, honoring. Skill set number two, positive reinforcing, praising. Listening from the heart, the power of choice and personal responsibility. resolving conflict. One of my favorite ones is moving from judgment to forgiveness. Turning challenges into learning opportunities. That's something that a lot of us for the past 2.5 years have learned how to kind of, and see the skill set, have not become experts, but we utilize this a lot. And of course, there's always that one of giving and receiving, making sure that your cup is always full in order to give back to others. And a lot of this work is always with the work that we do with our students and also within our professional developments, it's always embedded in. And this is, again, this is where Educare has been doing its work and sitting in over the past 32 years.
Anything you want to add to this, Stu?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. I wasn't sure. And I'm going to try to find myself back. There I am. Well, the reason we wanted to have you hear the Heartset skills and see them is it's the groundwork for resiliency. And it kind of leads into self-care. So they're all blended together. And if you notice number 7, turning challenges into learning opportunities, that's where resilience is really called upon. So when we developed Heartset, we saw it as the foundation point for building that inner core. We talked about values. I heard some of you mention that sense of purpose, and Heartset allows that to ignite inside of each of us. And then we can move into greater self-care, which lays the seed for resilience. So Marguerite's going to kind of take us into what's this pathway into self-care. There's been a lot of attention on that in the last several years. And Marguerite's been, in my mind, an expert of sharing with groups of how to build that inner strength of self-care. So back over to you, Marguerite.
Thanks, Stu. Yeah, I try to be, and I'm learning along with everybody else, and it's great to have these reminders on a daily basis, especially when the challenges are surfacing moment to moment, like this morning with technology. So this idea of like, how can we build resilience with self-care? And so many of you have already shared some wonderful ways that you are doing it, and what I'm going to be sharing, a lot of you have already mentioned, but like I said, I think sometimes it's good for us to have those reminders. And we're kind of breaking it down into 3 areas of recharging, reframing, and restoring ourselves. Because again, we can't control what's happening out there in the world or what other people do, but what we can control is how we take care of ourselves, how we choose to respond to the challenges. So I'm just going to walk you through these sort of 3 main areas of how we can continue to be resilient through taking care of ourselves very intentionally. So the recharge is this idea of looking at how do we continue to recharge our physical well-being. It's our foundation. When we're feeling good, then we're able to show up. We're able to be there for ourselves and others. And what is sort of foundational around recharging is prioritizing our sleep. Go ahead and put in the chat, how many hours of sleep do you typically get a night? I think sometimes, we have days where we get a lot, some days we don't sleep that well, but I think if we make an intention to prioritize it, it's so important. It's like a dishwasher that actually flushes away harmful waste proteins at night. So it's really important that we make sure we get our sleep. And then let's see, we've got a lot of 7, 7.5, 6s, 8s, 8.5, pretty good. We got some 4s and 5s. There is actually a small percentage, it's only about 1% that don't need as much sleep, but typically experts say we need 7 to 8 hours. And then this idea of nourishing ourselves with nutrition. So, often when we're in a hurry, we're grabbing that donut or that extra 5th cup of coffee, but making sure that we are remembering to nourish ourselves in a way that energizes us, helps recharge ourselves in a way that we can keep going. And then making sure we're getting some movement. Where if you have a job where you're sitting a lot, you want to make sure you get up and stretch, get your body moving, get your blood flowing, making sure you're doing that even in small, subtle ways. And then this idea of reframing, which is a great way to support our mental well-being. I'm so grateful. One of the blessings from this whole situation with COVID is that it's made our mental well-being a conversation that everybody's talking about. The taboo is going out the window, and it's become normal to talk about. And I think that really, really wonderful. And so these are just some suggestions around ways to reframe our mindset that supports us in staying positive and resilient. So this idea of being, regardless of what's going on, there's always something we can be grateful for. Some of you did mention that you take time to meditate and slow down. So important for us to kind of come back to that center. I think it was Jenny that mentioned something about, going to that center of ourselves where that calm place is, even though the storm around us is brewing. Choosing a positive mindset with, maybe, what are the stories we're telling ourselves, being more intentional about the inner dialogue that we're having with ourselves. And then again, focusing on what we can control versus what we can't control is what's really going to help us stay in a positive mindset. And then this idea of restoring our inner life, our emotional and spiritual well-being, where a lot of you also mentioned was how you stayed resilient, your faith, that your inner strengths really got you through. So that, this idea that making that front and center of how you're supporting yourself through connection with yourself and others, through being of service, connecting to your purpose. I love the saying, we can weather any how, wait, how's it go? No, I'm forgetting. When we connect to our why, we can deal with any how, right? So it's like having that awareness of why do we get up in the morning helps us get through the challenging times. And then a few of you have mentioned this idea of, compassion and kindness towards ourselves, regardless of what's going on, having that loving and caring towards us first, ourselves, is the foundation for restoring our inner world. Did you want to share anything else, Stu, before I keep going?
No, that sounds great, Margalit.
All right. So we want to talk a little bit also about this idea. So, all of us, our self-care looks very different. Each individual has their own way that works for them. Also, some of you may be taking care of small children or elderly parents, perhaps, and you may not have a lot of time for this time for self-care. So we want to present this idea of, that tiny habits done consistently can have a major impact, which we call microhabits. So I'm going to just share with you some small things that you can do on a consistent basis that can really impact our ability to be resilient and thrive on a day-to-day basis in each of these areas. So in the physical well-being, these are just some suggestions. You may have your own ways that work for you to recharge physically, but here's just a few that we know of that work. Unplugging from our devices at the end of the day. I know a lot of us have our phones by our beds. It's our alarm clock. It's our everything for some of us. But this idea of, turning it off or putting it aside at least 30 minutes, because the light from the phone actually limits our melatonin, and that can keep us from having a good restful sleep. Creating a routine, if you're a parent or when you were a little kid, you had your bath, your reading time, but giving that to ourselves where we can kind of let go of the day and start to wind down. Adding healthy foods or making sure you have a healthy snack, and then taking some breaks, away from what you're doing to maybe stretch or get moving as a way to recharge your body. And then in reframing the mental well-being, gratitude has been a huge part of my life. I have to say, doing a practice every night of what I'm grateful for has literally changed my life. Because not only does it help me sort of reflect on the day and see what went well, but I feel like I look for more with what I'm grateful for throughout the day. So this one has really supported me during this time and other times in my life. Having an affirmation or a reframing phrase, like if things are getting, or the stress response is kicking in, it's like, what can you tell yourself in the moment? I'm calm and peaceful, or I can get through this. But what we tell ourselves, our words really, really matter. Taking time to breathe. There's a saying, if we have time to breathe, we have time to meditate. So in fact, right now in this moment, everybody just go ahead and take a deep breath. And it's just amazing in that moment when we breathe, how we can just slow our bodies down when we're feeling stressed, when we want more clarity at any time. So go ahead and put in the chat, what do you do to help you stay positive? What are some things that help you to keep your mental well-being strong? And then this idea too that we, I got to multitask, I got to get it all done. Well, maybe just take some time just to do one thing at a time to support yourself. Those are some ways to recharge and reframe. And then lastly, how do we restore? What are some ideas of these little things that you can do, a micro habit, to connect to your emotional and spiritual well-being? Maybe it's a check-in, like, what do I need today that will support me? Because I feel like, every day we're different. Maybe one day I need to move around. Maybe another day I need just some quiet and some stillness. Or maybe I need to reach out to someone. So just checking in with yourself is a powerful way to restore yourself, and also to feel seen and heard by you. Maybe writing a list of what you enjoy. I think I skipped over this idea of joy triggers. This idea that, taking time for things that you enjoy that bring lightness and joy to yourself. I mean, some of you have little children and that's your joy trigger. Or maybe you like to do something creative or play music. So what are those things? And making sure you take time to do them. We've talked a lot about connection and having support around us. So maybe reaching out to someone you haven't talked to in a while. I know over COVID, that was something that I did, was like, who haven't I spoken to in a long time that really matters to me? And I want to make sure that I reach out to them. And that's been really special. And then this idea too of appreciating someone in your life, whether it's a family member or a colleague or your barista at Starbucks, like saying something kind to someone makes you feel good and can even make their day. So we're going to take a moment now, a couple minutes for you to start building your resilience game plan. And again, you might already have one. So maybe this is this time to just kind of reflect on what has helped you, or maybe there's something new that you want to try. So grab your pen and paper, or if you're typing it on your computer, and what self-care micro habit could support you to build your resilience. Choosing one of each, one in the recharge of your physical well-being, one in the reframe to support your mental well-being, and one to restore your inner life of your emotional and spiritual well-being. And I will put up on the screen some of the suggestions that I've already mentioned. And we'll give you a couple minutes. I'll play some soft music while you do that. Feel free to write anything in the chat that you're already you're writing down so we can learn from each other. And we'll just take a couple minutes for that before we do a breakout. Armando also put it in the chat if that's easier for you to see. And again, you don't have to choose one of these. If there's something that you know works for you, go ahead and write that down. All right, so go ahead and finish up. And if you are still writing, just so you know, you're going to have some time in a breakout to share what your game plan is. Edith said, restore, reach out to a friend and just talk. Recharge, being alone, listening to music, or watching a funny movie. Yes, Netflix has been my friend during the pandemic, just in terms of uplifting content. So, so in this breakout activity, this is what you're going to be sharing. What self-care habits, can support you in building your resilience. So, sharing, in the different areas, if it's in recharge, it's like, I'm going to make sure I take a walk each day. In reframe, I'm going to have an affirmation that I keep up on a Post-it note in my bathroom window wall. And for restore, I'm just going to make sure I meditate at least 5 minutes a day. So that could be, one of each. And then discuss, what you chose with one another. And then we want you to pick just one that you'll commit to in this next week, because we really want it to be simple. Sometimes we want to overdo it. We have all these big ideas. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But this idea of micro habits is building upon a consistent habit actually changes our neural pathways in our brain that help us stay consistent with habits. And then how will you support yourself to follow through? Writing it down somewhere, maybe putting it in your calendar, or put a ping in your calendar that's going to remind you, or maybe you have a buddy. It's always a great idea to support you, support one another. So what are you going to do to support yourself in following through? Armando put these questions in the chat. And let's see, they will have, how many minutes will they have? Do we have for that?
We'll have same time, about eight minutes.
All right.
All right, and you guys should definitely be in different rooms with different folks. I try to do my best to make sure that you guys get to talk to somebody else. And we'll message you halfway through. Make sure that all of you guys get to have the opportunity to go.
And enjoy your breakout.
Enjoy it.
And as Stu asked before, go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you found that valuable time with one another. Yes, I mean, typically our breakouts are the best part of our Zoom sessions, because it's our time that you get to connect with one another and really feel a sense of community. So I'm glad you're having that time to do that. So now we'd like to take some sharing, either in the chat or like we did before, raising your hand, and let us know, what is the micro habit that you're choosing to try this week? So who would be willing to share? Again, you can, actually virtual hands might work a little better because I've got 3 screens of people. No problem. Some of you have some internet stuff. We totally understand. So you can go ahead and, if that's you, then if you can't share verbally, you can put it in the chat. What's the micro habit? Danny says, add lunch. Yeah. Yeah, we need, you got to eat your lunch.
And breakfast is good too. Yeah.
Yeah, smart. Who else? What else are you going to do?
I can go if you want.
Who's that?
Priscilla.
Okay, Priscilla, and then Jacqueline has her hand up after you.
So for the reframe part, I actually did all 3, but the reframe one is the one I'm gonna talk about. So something that I was actually telling the people I was the breakout room with was that sometimes I have to be grateful for my blessings, and sometimes even the little things. So I was just telling them that not so long ago, my car had broke down, and I was just mad at the world because my car had broke down. And the worst part was that it broke down like a couple blocks away from my house. So I was just kind of so mad at the world, and I was just like, and then I remembered something that I usually always tell everyone, like, what if your car broke down and something worse was going to happen to you? And like, I'm not a big religion person, but I do believe in a God. So I was just kind of more like, well, what if God had like broke my car down because maybe something worse was going to happen to me. Like, and then now I'd rather my car break down than something worse, you know?
Mhm.
So kind of trying to stay positive and
Yeah.
like the fact that I could be in worse situations, but I mean, me breaking down, that's fixable. I could call AAA, figure it out, you know?
Right.
Kind of just see the positive things of,
Yeah.
even though they seem really negative.
Yeah, that's awesome. So choosing to reframe what could be, a really difficult situation. So that's a great one. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Priscilla. And then Jacqueline had her hand up, and then I'll share some of the chats.
Yeah, so mine would be creating a routine before bed to help me relax. I feel like I'm always on the move. I'm always doing something, and even I notice that when I'm laying in bed, I'm like planning out my day
Mhm.
as I'm like, okay, I need to do this. And to be honest with you guys, I have a pen and paper next to my bed so I can write things down so I don't forget. So I think one of the habits is going to be creating a routine. Like I always leave my phone on the side, so maybe just not having any like TV or noises on, and just laying down and turning off my crazy brain for a bit.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Jacqueline. But I just want to speak to the idea of the pad and pen. I think that actually is a good idea, because if it comes to your mind, it's good to jot it down, because then it won't wake you up at night. So I would
Yeah,
say,
just not at 2 a.m, right?
oh, yeah, no. But yeah, actually, if it helps you fall back to sleep, it could help. But I know what you mean, like, yeah, don't turn the light on and start writing a whole like list of to-dos. No. Good job. Ivan.
One of the things that stood out in our group was just tapering into these routines. A lot of times we get turned away from wanting to do these things because we go like so hard into it, and then you're like, why am I torturing myself? And so what we spoke about was just more like tapering into it gradually,
Mhm.
trying to set these goals, as opposed to like every day having to wake up really early or going to bed early or turning off your TV and so forth. So as you gradually get into these routines, your mind or your body will start accepting it, and then it just turns into like a normal thing.
Yeah, that's great, Ivan. Thank you. Excellent. And that's the whole idea behind microhabits. The idea is make it so easy, like go to bed 5 minutes early or 15 minutes early, not like, okay, I was going to bed at 10 and now I'm going to bed at 8. Like that's not tapering at all, right? It's got to be like, wow, it's so easy. I can do this one. That's how you want to frame it for sure. So I love that you mentioned that. Some of the ones in the chat, so many. This is awesome. Let's see. Take breaks when scheduled, said Gisele. Sammy says taking time to refocus at the end of the week. Asking others for help, says Lily. Going for walks with my family to catch up and take time with each other. Crystal, I love that. Berenice, my micro habit is to implement a break from my phone, because I end up wasting a lot of time out of your day. Raise your hand if you feel like, I could spend a little less time on my phone. I was actually literally thinking of that this morning. Like there's something about, well, they're designed for us to want to pick them up and check them all the time, because we get that little shot of dopamine, but actually it messes with our ability to focus. So I really love that one. Taking mindful breathing breaks, says Brenda. Edith, joining groups or classes that helps build micro habits. Oh, a weekly writing group. Yeah, so getting support, having a buddy or a class that helps you do the things that you want to do is such a great idea. Adriana, start the day by exercising and planning your day by creating a list. And Daniel says, restoring, commit to bring joy into my day and honoring the artist within. Stephanie, reading positive books before going to bed. And I love that. And I'll any of you like podcasts? Like I use podcasts as a way to like stay focused on something positive. There's a lot of funny ones, but there's lots of so much good content out there when we're intentional about why we're using it. There's so many good ones. So, take a look in the chat, see if there's any ones that resonate for you, and grab those for later if it's going to support you. Anything you wanted to comment on, Stu, before we answer that question that came up?
No, these are great. I was thinking of mine, which is to laugh more. I've been looking for my favorite comedies and making sure I get a good dose of my comedies on TV or people and jokes. So laughter and play is a big part of my routine that's building up right now.
I love that. What's a favorite show that makes you laugh, Stu?
I do when I do my Saturday morning stretches, I usually turn on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It used to be cartoons as a kid. Now I get to watch something else.
Love that. I just
Yeah.
finished listening to his autobiography. It's actually really good. I
Yeah.
recommend that. Wonderful. Well, someone had a great question. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right because it's only your email. So it's SPIHA from Temescal Associates said, how can leaders, organizations support these practices among their staff? Which I thought was such a great question. Stu, you said you wanted to touch on that?
Yeah. And that if I heard that correctly, that's from Sam Pia.
Oh, okay.
And thank you, Sam, director of Temescal and Hal Kislerin Foundation, and co-hosting us here today. And one of the ways we recommend getting it inside of staff is to actually make time and actually you can do some of these types of activities, have people look at their self-care, do an inventory, what might be a next step that they can take. So bring it into staff developments, have conversations like this, do check-ins with staff. And I know with Educure and a lot of our staff, and thank you for being here today, we would do that regularly through the pandemic in small groups, is really to do self-care check-ins and listen. And so I would just integrate it as part of a practice, of an organizational practice, and then model it as our leaders, as each of us lead inside of our groups, model your own self-care, because then people will understand it's not just words, it's by practice that we're doing this. So those would be some of the tips I would suggest.
I love that, Stu. And if any other leaders on the Zoom right now have suggestions, please go ahead and put them in the chat because we have a lot of group leaders here that support a team. But I love that, Stu, this idea of like making it a priority for your team and doing check-ins is a great suggestion. Doing less is more. Oh, I see. These are some other routines. Lovely. No electronics, stretching, taking a bath, bedtime routines. You know, it's kind of like treating ourselves like we do with our little ones, you know, the loving and caring, which is really what this is all about. This is all about taking care of ourselves, treating ourselves that could really matter. I think somebody shared to start this session about, you know, really making ourselves a priority. And that's really what this is about, and doing it in a way that is workable and actionable, not these huge changes that are not realistic. So I hope that you got something that you can use walking out of today. And I encourage you to just start small, make it happen. It helped me get back to my meditation by just committing to 2 minutes a day. And I'm now on day 50. And that's the most consistent I've been. And it's only because I said I would do at least 2 minutes. That's how easy it was. So keep going, people. You're doing great. So I'll go back into the I think Armando is going to share a little bit about some resources that we have for you.
Yeah, so really quick, I'm posting a handout, which we'll make sure that you guys also get an email to you in the chat. You could actually download it. It is a group of activities that you could use with your students based on our Making the Best of Me curriculum. So you guys do have that for download. There's it's a really good fun activities. It walks you through how to work it with your students. And additionally, we're also posting it. There's a QR code if you were looking for the curriculum as well. Feel free to reach out directly to me. Another article that we're sharing as well, it's on Very Well Mind. It's ways to become more resilient. It's a really solid article, and I'm also going to share another article from Ariana Huffington on the ideas of micro steps and how to really work those micro steps and to create it into a habit. So. Again, we'll make sure that as you also get part of the recording from the session, along with these the handout, and as well as the 2 articles that are on there. And read it. It's a really good reads, and as well as those activities that are for you guys from our Making the Best of Me curriculum. And a lot of this is we utilize it within our schools, within our ACE program. So. Definitely, we've been using it for many years, some of these activities, and we know that they work with our students. So thank you, Marguerite.
Thanks,
And
Armando.
with those student activities, excuse me, Marguerite, Armando, thank you. Those are also good for staff. So just,
yes, those are also good for staff.
They're designed for professional development trainings as well. And so thanks, just want to bring that in. And Marguerite, if I can kind of lead in, I see we're we just have a few minutes left, and I thought it might be wise if everybody can just reflect back over this last hour and a half. And if there's something you can take away most from today, one thing that you've learned, that you've gathered, and how you might use it, just consider, what might it be? What's your big takeaway from today? And in that reflection, feel free to write a few words in the chat. And also, we welcome if there's a few of you who'd like to just share out what's one major thing you're taking away from today. So go ahead and put that in the chat, and raise your hand if you'd like to share out on that. What's your big takeaway?
Sharona says the little things can make a big difference over time.
Yeah.
And AJ said hearing other folks' stories.
Yeah.
Sammy
Sammy?
said, oh, you can see it? Okay, great.
No, it came across the bottom of my little phone and now it's gone. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sammy says it's important to start small in order to be consistent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And now they're coming in. Lizzie, it's never the wrong time to reset or reevaluate habits. That's really well said. Jacqueline, knowing I'm not alone in trying to become a better me. Yes, we are doing this together, aren't we? Silvestre says it's very validating to hear others and that are facing similar challenges.
Yeah.
Treat others with and yourself with kindness, says Sandra. Jenny, resetting can happen as many, oh, it's moving so fast. Where'd it go? As many times as needed. It's okay to keep trying, right?
Nice. And I think the wisdom that we're sharing today, it's pretty powerful. And it reminds me of the connections that we have, that how we resource one another, the community is so important. And as we're coming to a close today, first, I just want to thank everyone for the time you've taken out of your days to kind of give, not just take from the workshop, but give into the workshop and to one another. And one thing I'd like to start to close out with is the power of our imagination to set a tone for where this workshop can take you further. And we do a lot of work with our kids with mindfulness and creative visualization. So just for about 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to invite you to join with me with an imagination through your mind of the power of where you're taking your resilience. So if you're comfortable in your setting, you could just gently close your eyes for a moment. And Marguerite's got a soft piece of music, and I'll share a few words and allow yourself just to reflect on some of this. And we've done a lot of talking and listening and meeting one another today. And what I would hope that each of us has is that acknowledgement of how resilient we've each been, each of us in a different sort of way over these last few years. The courage to face some tough times, the willingness to ask for support, not be too proud about that, the willingness to help somebody else who really could use some help, and knowing that you have the ability to do that. So give yourself kind of that pat on the back, that acknowledgement for the strength within you that just comes through even when things are rough. And in a lot of ways, you came through for the kids. And they may not have told you this, but your sense of resilience is helping restore our kids. And as you go forward over the days and weeks ahead, just see those images of you, even when things kind of get thrown around, maybe laughing through it, or feeling confident through it, or realizing you're not alone and asking for support. And just know that you have what it takes, each of us, and together we build a better world as we take care of ourselves and really reach out and support one another. Just know this doesn't end. The journey continues, and each of us in a wonderful way together. So with some of those thoughts in mind, take another nice deep breath in, and know you can always let go and always start new. And many of you said that. Each and every moment, oh, I've messed up, I could have done it better. Well, here's another moment. Let me get back on track. So with that in mind, you can just gently bring yourself back together here. If your eyes are closed, you might open your eyes and take a look around the screen. If you're not on gallery, I invite you to kind of look at the amazing people that you've been with. Unfortunately, on my little phone, I don't have that gallery view, but I'm imagining I'm seeing you and thanking you. And I want to thank you for being here today. And I want to acknowledge the organizations that supported today. Of course, there was How Kids Learn and the Temesco Associates. And thank you, Sam and Ren, for doing that with us with Educare. And many of you represent organizations, and I just wanted to give a thank you out to your organizations. And I made a list when I saw some of the names last few nights. A World for Kids, thank you. And Bay Area Community Resources, Richmond District from San Francisco, Nature Bridge, Stanislaus County Office of Ed is with us today. Boys and Girls Club of the North Valley from Chico, the Envisioners, Mid-Penn Housing, thank you. Harris County Department of Ed out of Texas, California School Age Consortium, Bay Area Community Resources, Ontario Montclair School District, Girls Inc. out of Alameda, California, Modesto City Schools. So thanks for the organizational support and the ways that you support your staff. And I want to turn it back over Margalit and Armando, any closing words and send-offs you might want to share.
Again,
Yeah,
I could share really quick. Again, Sam, thank you for the opportunity to be here and sharing the space with everybody that's here. And just a really quick, look out for these resources via email through, for those of you guys that are registered directly through How Kids Learn. So you guys will get these resources. And again, it's always a pleasure to see a lot of you that we get to work day in, day out over the past 2 years. So thank you for being here. And it's always a pleasure. Margalit?
Thanks, Armando. I just want to thank all of you for your participation and sharing your wisdom with each other. I feel inspired just from the things that I've read and seeing your faces. It's truly uplifting. And as you all are continuing to be of service and giving, I just thank you for all that you do. I see you and I appreciate you so, so much. So thanks for today and thanks for all you do.
And you might open your mic if you just want to put your goodbyes out into the room. Go right ahead, everybody. We're glad you're with us today. Thanks so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.